Moore, Committee to Unleash Prosperity, FreedomWorks, and his book, Govzilla. Steve, welcome back. You did great this morning. I can't thank you enough for your contributions.
Special. People really ought to watch that. Friday night at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
On Fox Business. Fantastic. I mean, the amazing people that you had on set was fantastic. What I really learned is, you know, when countries move down that path to socialism, it just causes human misery. It just causes misery.
Everywhere. I mean, you can't find an example, right, of a successful socialist economic model. It just doesn't.
You left out those great sayings. I like the one by Hayek, who said, never travel down the road to surf.
Yes, of course. Absolutely, of course. So, speaking of central planning, let's look at the Fed. The Federal Reserve, by the way, is one of the great central planning agencies of all time, and it's gotten worse over the years. I didn't know if you have any particular thoughts. So they raised the rate 75 basis points. I think they should have done 100, but they say they're going to be 75 in November, another 50 in December. They expect the inflation rate to come down with barely a bump up in unemployment. What you think?
Well, you know, those numbers that you put up about what they were projecting for unemployment and inflation to be in the next year or two, I mean, I'd take that in a heartbeat.
Sure.
But I don't think they're going to get ever. I'm worried, Larry, about the opposite scenario, the dreaded S word, which is stagflation. And I really worry about that. I mean, first of all, nobody in Washington's even talking about growth. Nobody's talking about growth.
That's right.
How do we get the economy moving again? President Biden gave, you know, on his toughness on Ukraine, I'd give him high grades. But he spent half the time talking about climate change. $300 billion we're going to spend. And it's like here the world is in recession. And he's not talking about free markets. He's not talking about prosperity. He's talking about, look, the biggest restraint on the American economy and the world economy right now, and the greatest threat is not COVID. It's not climate change. It's exactly what you talked about, this relentless march towards big government and socialism, which will destroy prosperity.
And which is in process, if it ain't fixed, of destroying our great fossil energy industry, for
That's
example.
a big part of it.
And, you know, Europe made mistake after mistake. They're going to be worse off than we are as the world goes into recession because of their climate change.
What's so frustrating about that, Larry, is that, like, when Europe made its big move towards green energy starting about 5 or 10 years ago, it was a complete failure. I mean, it deindustrialized these countries. It causes the fact that they pay $10. Do you know they're paying $10 a gallon for gas in London today? So we can see through the mirror that this is where we're headed, and yet we're not. We're going over the same cliff that Europe went over. We should be using it. Why not nuclear power? Why not use natural gas? Those are clean energy sources. Why don't we use all the energy that we have to make American economy prosperous?
Yeah, I mean, we used to have a policy of all the above.
Yeah.
And we still should have a policy.
Right.
Nothing against wind and solar and so forth, but that's only 4 or 5%. It's not going to provide the electricity that we need.
That's exactly.
You know, in California, Gavin Newsom says you got to buy an electric car in 10 years. Oh, but by the way, if you have one today, you can't recharge it because we don't have enough electricity. And the reason they don't have enough electricity is they shut down natural gas and nuclear, although they reopened the nuclear plant because they're in such dire straits. But I want to raise this point with the Fed.
Yeah.
Because the inflation problem is now much deeper and broader than energy. And you look at things like the Cleveland Fed's median CPI, which is 6.7%. And that's why I don't understand how they're going to end the target rate increases to 4.6%, call 4.5%, but the inflation rate is very likely to be above that. And I would think you want a real target rate, a real Fed funds rate that might have to go to 5 or 6 or 7%. That's not even in the ballpark.
Well, we wouldn't have to do that if we were increasing the supply of goods and services, right?
Right.
So, you know, I hate this idea that growth causes inflation. No, it's the absence of growth that causes inflation. And we don't have any policies that are oriented towards growing the economy right now. By the way, the other thing Joe Biden talked a lot about today in his speech, I know you were talking about your socialism show, he kept trumpeting this idea of this global minimum tax. And like an American president is talking about all these other countries raising their tax rates. So
in recession. In a world recession.
Exactly.
What a terrific idea.
It's absurd.
Terrific idea.
So my view is that we may see a reduction in inflation over the next 4 or 5 months, but I'm really worried now about production. About, you look at Walmart is now saying that their store sales are down. FedEx is having problems. You see some of the technology companies laying off workers. It just doesn't feel right now. It feels like the wheels are coming off, and I don't see any proposals, do you, from the Biden administration
for growth
to deal with it?
Nothing.
None.
Now, speaking of whom, last point, in the Committee to Unleash Prosperity notes today, you talk about the need to keep the pay-go caps going. That would require a considerable reduction in future spending, but it is odd. Here's the Fed trying to tighten money, and here's the federal government, Biden and company, pushing more money into the economy. Now, how's that going to work?
Yeah, see, this is my point about the Fed. I think at this point, yes, you need the Fed to raise rates. What did you say? Maybe 100, 175 basis points. But you also, you're not going to get rid of this inflation until you do something about the out-of-control government spending.
Right.
You have to.
Right.
You have to do that. Now, the Republicans in Congress, it's kind of a newsflash because a lot of people don't know this. In fact, a lot of the members of Congress don't know this. If we can get if we get 41 Republicans in the Senate to vote against lifting repealing the budget rules, then it's an automatic cut in spending of about $110 billion. That's a start.
That's exactly what they should be doing.
Exactly.
That's exactly
and they could do
what
that.
they
And by the
should
way,
be doing.
there's nothing that Chuck Schumer, nothing Nancy Pelosi, nothing that the president.
Does that
can do.
apply to the continuing resolution?
Well, see, we're trying to get this into all they have to do is not waive the budget rules.
Right.
These are the rules, folks. Live under them. They could, by the way, you could take $25 billion out of the IRS. This report just came out today about tens and tens of billions of dollars in fraud and all these government payment programs. Eliminate the fraud, cut to $100 billion. By the way, I think Wall Street would love that, don't you?
You can't end inflation unless you stop the crazy spending.
That's right.
We've learned that the hard way. I mean, that's the key point. Steve Moore, thank you. Thank you very much all day today.
Thank you, Larry.